Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, the artist behind Bigelow Fine Arts. How did the last coloring session go? I hope the smaller palettes were easier to read and the video a little easier to watch. I also put in chapter breaks to make it easier to find things later should you want to revisit one particular section. I'll be working on this corner today, beginning with the 3-lobed leaf clusters and using a red palette. I am laying in a base of deep red around the exterior of the leaf, then using the dark red to lay in a base foundation on the center of the leaf. With the caput mortem, I am darkening up the center ribs. My goal with this leaf is to treat the center ribs as deep valleys that are creasing into the leaf. As such, the leaf will be darker at the base and along the ribs, becoming lighter towards the edges. The shadows are coming from the dark sepia and the red violet, with the caput mortem feathering out the shadows into the lighter edge colors. The edges are composed of the deep red and the dark red, as well as a little caput mortem along the base where the rest of the leaf would cast a shadow. I go around and touch up the layers as I go, using a light pressure to gradually fill in the leaf and the tooth of the paper. Working one side of the leaf at a time, I can use that to get my layers just right before moving on to the other half and the rest of the leaves. By using light layers, I can correct wrong color choices should they occur. At this point, I can work the other half to match. The shape of the leaf is now coming together, showing the valley along the ribs. Although a leaf is generally a flat object, they do curl and undulate, and by adding in shadows along those points, I can give the leaf character and depth. As I build up more layers, I naturally press a little harder to get more coverage, but I am still keeping the pressure light. I am not pressing as hard as I can or burnishing. I'll be using several different color palettes to work through most of the different elements in this corner. I'll have each palette up on the screen for each section to help you follow along. In future videos, I'll try to stick to one palette even if that means jumping around a bit more to try to make it easier. I'm moving on to the grass. Even though this is just a thin area to fill in, I can give it more depth by coloring the top a different color from the bottom and be blending them together. Thinking about the placement of the light source, as a reminder I chose the upper right corner, the bottom of the grass would be shaded by the trunk and roots of the tree behind it. To create that shadowed effect, I am using the permanent green along the bottom of the blades of grass, going up about a third of the way. The tips will be exposed to more light, so I'll use the light green on them going down about a third of the way. To blend the colors together, I'll use the grass green and lightly work the middle, blending into the top and bottom. I don't need a harsh shadow line here. The leaves above would diffuse the light, but I do want to give the grass some character and depth instead of coloring it a single flat color. For the shorter blades of grass, I'm making the base darker with the grass green and blending it out to the light green at the tips of the leaf. I'm not too worried about the shorter blades, as they are not going to show a lot of gradient or color, being that they are so small, but I will still give them the same treatment as the others. Moving on, I am working up these pointed leaves. One side of the leaf has rib lines, while the other does not. I'm using that fact to dictate where I am putting my shadows. Traditionally, in illustration work, more lines means a darker area. So I'm going to be working on the light unlined side of the leaf with a light layer of earth green. With the permanent green, I'll add a shadow to the base of that section of the leaf before going back in with the earth green to blend things together. For the other half, I'll hit the top of the section with the chrome green and use the pine green to add the shadow at the bottom. Even with a leaf this small, creating a two-toned effect really gives the leaf a different feeling than coming in with just one color. The smaller sprig with pointed leaves will get the same treatment. Since there are no rib lines on one half, I'll pick a side that I think would be hit by the light and work it up with the earth green and permanent green. The other side then gets the chrome green and pine green, making it look like the shadowed side of the leaf. This cute little snail is up next, and I wanted to try something really different, so I looked up different colored snails and settled on something with a purple palette, but it ended up being more red than purple. I began with the red violet to lay in some shadows under the bottom of each whorl of the shell, as well as a light layer over the entire shell. With my shadows in place, I am now using the burnt carmine and middle flesh to add layers to the shell and the caput mortem to darken the shadows more. I also added a light layer to the head and tail in the caput mortem before coming in with the middle flesh to brighten it up. I then added a tiny shadow and caput mortem under the head. Now I'm going to go back in and touch everything up to make sure all my layers are good. Two more areas to complete in this corner. The little sprig of leaves will use the same colors as the grass, as well as the yellow lemon to fill in the tiny eye on the leaf. Again, in hindsight, I would just skip filling in the tiny dot and work the leaf by ignoring it. I did fill in the tiny little dot with a medium pressure to avoid getting any green in the dot area. With the dot filled, I worked this leaf up the same way I worked up other leaves. I lay in a light layer of light green at the tip followed by the permanent green at the base, and blend it all together with the grass green in the middle. I then go back over the leaves to build up the layers in order to have the colors transition smoothly from one color to the next. And finally, the last thing I want to hit in this section is the flower in front of the rabbit. It is small and quick to color up. As a side note and reminder, I did put in chapter breaks to make it easier to find any of these little bits later on. Onto the flower. I began with one of my favorite shadow colors when working with orange. Coming in with the red violet, I put in a light shadow at the base of the petals and where the front petal overlaps the back petals. I also added a dark line for the rib of the petal. I am envisioning this to look like a tulip, so the bottom will curve away, causing a shadow at the base. With the shadows in place, I am coming in with the orange for the tips and a base over the entire petal before coming in with the cadmium red to blend the tips into the shadows at the base. A little touch up to refine the colors, and that finishes off the flower and this bottom corner. On that note, let me know how your coloring is going and if you've been following along. Did you finish this corner? Don't forget, there's a matching corner on the other side that looks the same. If you have any questions, please leave them below or on the Patreon post linking this video. Down in the show notes, I have added in the chapter breaks as well as a list of equipment I have or will be using. And thank you everyone for coming along and joining in with me on this coloring journey. I appreciate all my subscribers and look forward to more of you joining in and coloring along with me. That will only happen if you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, happy coloring!